it comes apart easily. All the grower needs to do is shake the jars every few days to keep the substrate crumbled. This is useful because it can be poured into trays where it is fruited, or else used to inoculate more jars. A fully colonized jar can be used to inoculate another 10 substrate jars of the same size. This makes it possible to increase your mycelium supply at an exponential rate, and is a common method used for bulk growing. Because the pattern of mycelial growth can be an indication of its fruiting potential, experienced growers select and isolate certain segments of mycelium and discard others. Isolating a single mycelium strain is an extra step that most growers consider necessary for ensuring optimum yields through quality control. Isolating a strain is not essential, however, especially for most basic grow methods. More on selecting and isolating strains later. The biggest challenge faced by the mycologist is to fight, or better yet, prevent, contamination. In mycology, the object is to provide mushroom spores with ideal conditions to grow. However, these same conditions are enjoyed by countless other organisms which may compete with our mushrooms for nutrients. Any other organism that gets a foothold in our mushroom culture is considered a contamination. In order to cultivate mushrooms without getting contaminations, each step of the process must employ a certain degree of what is called sterile technique. Most amateur growers can expect at least some of their cultures to become contaminated. Even experienced growers expect the occasional contamination. Most contaminations will be evident by the presence of strange odors or discolorations. The most common contamination is green penicillin mold. If contamination does occur, there is usually no remedy, so prevention is key. Contaminated culture can lead to toxic mushrooms that may be poisonous if consumed. It is not worth it to try to salvage a contaminated culture. Even disposing of a contaminated culture should be done carefully because it could be dangerous to inhale. The biggest potential source for contaminants comes from the substrate itself. Flour or rye seed will contain thousands of fungal and bacterial spores. That is why they need to be sterilized. Sterilization kills these spores. However, after sterilization, they are still vulnerable to contaminants that are in the air or that lie in wait on skin, clothing, hair, tools, and in fabrics. Before being used, tools should be sterilized. Do this with adequate heat or disinfectant. Skin and hair should be clean, and clothing should be newly laundered when handling substrates in mushroom cultures. Wearing rubber gloves is always a good idea. Contaminants are also floating around in the air, virtually invisible. There are thousands upon thousands of these undesirable microscopic organisms. The density of free-floating organisms in the air is generally much greater during spring and summer months than it is during the winter, and will also depend greatly on your local environment and climate and so on. Fighting airborne contaminants is important when you are inoculating or transferring cultures, and there are different ways to go about it. Laboratories often use high-efficiency particulate air filtration systems to clean the air. High-efficiency particulate air, or HEPA filters, are rated to remove 99.99% of all air particles over a certain size. This allows technicians to work in an environment virtually free of fungus and bacteria. In some labs, these filtration systems are built into the ceilings or walls, so that an entire room is receiving filtered air. Many hobbyists build their own filter systems. Laminar flow hoods, as they are called, are built by combining a fan, a HEPA filter, and an airtight casing. The fan should be a squirrel cage type and be of sufficient blowing strength. Also, the casing must be well designed so that it is airtight. Details on how to build a flow hood at home are available on the internet. HEPA filters are available from large hardware stores, but they are not cheap. The mycologist works in the area in front of the filter where the clean air is blowing out. Larger filters allow for a larger work area. For most amateurs, much simpler and inexpensive methods are available. Glove boxes are cheap, simple, and effective. Simple glove box can be constructed from plastic totes with rubber gloves sealed around each armhole. Slightly less effective, but easy to make versions are cardboard boxes with armholes cut out and an openable plexiglass window fastened on with duct tape. Glove boxes should be used in combination with lots of bleach spray and/or aerosol disinfectant. First, load the clean glove box with all of the items that will be needed. Then, close the lid and apply disinfectant in and around the glove box. Using clean, disinfected rubber gloves, perform the operations, resealing all the jars quickly. For the purposes of this video, some of the procedures will be shown in slightly less than ideal conditions, so that they can be seen better. Most of what you will see should be done under a laminar flow hood or inside a glove box, or in the very least, inside a small room, such as a bathroom, that has been cleaned thoroughly with disinfectant shortly beforehand. The rice flour and vermiculite cake method is the quickest way for beginners to grow many edible mushroom types. This method is also referred to as the PF Tech method, after Psilocybe fanaticus, the company that invented it. Mushroom cultures can be started with the tissue of the developed fruit body, a segment of mycelium, from a spore print, or from a spore syringe. I will be using a spore syringe, which I recommend for beginners because it's easy to use. Syringes and prints can be bought on the internet from reliable suppliers and can often be found in retail shops as well, depending on local laws. As well as a viable print or syringe, you will also need a pressure cooker, which can be bought at most department stores, organic brown rice flour, which can be bought at many health food stores, vermiculite, which can be bought at garden supply stores, and wide-mouth canning jars, which can be bought at hardware or department stores. You will also need tinfoil, distilled water, a hammer, and a small nail. Make sure your mason jars are slightly tapered. If they are not tapered, then the colonized substrate will not slide out properly when it is ready. What was these jars? I've never used these shaped jars before. Start by punching holes in the lid caps. Do this over a block of wood with a hammer and a small nail. With the side with the rubber seal ring facing up, punch 2 holes opposite each other just inside the rubber seal ring of each lid cap. These holes are needed so that the substrate can be inoculated with a syringe afterwards, so make sure the holes are big enough for the needle tip. Syringe inoculation